Okay, so the first thing to say about King Philip's War is this is a name that the English colonist gave to a man by the name of Metacom. Metacom was the son of Massasoit. Massasoit was a Native American leader who first interacted with that first group of Puritans who arrived here in 1620, the Pilgrims. In fact, what we think of as like the first Thanksgiving was between Massasoit and the Pilgrims. And so in this way, we can kind of think about Massasoit and Metacom in a similar way to where we looked at in Virginia the relationship between Powhatan and Opeshekanow. Remember, Powhatan would do kind of stagecraft, right? Have Pocahontas save John Smith, Pocahontas marries John Rolfe, but Opeshekanow waged war, like done, because he saw the degree to which the Virginian colonists were moving in and setting up those tobacco farms. So this is a little similar, but they're separated by more years. Massasoit, right, initially, I don't know if we could quite say allies with the English, but isn't waging war with the English. The English, in part, because they're dependent. They need native peoples, but then as their population is growing, that's no longer something that they seek. Now you've got a document at the bottom of your outline here by Winthrop. Winthrop, he's the man, remember, that wrote the Model of Christian Charity. He's also the guy that oversaw Anne Hutchinson's trial. And in this document, What Warrant Have We to Take That Land, he gives 4 reasons why the English should be able to take Native Americans' land. He says that it's common to all, so it's proper to none. He says that Native peoples don't have property, they don't have title to this. And he also says that they aren't really using it in the right way. And so the English colonists need to show them how to use it. He says there's more than enough for them and us. God hath, this is number 3, God hath consumed the natives with a miraculous plague, whereby the greater part of the country is left void of the inhabitants. So, God made them all sick, so clearly God wants us to have the land, he's saying there. And, then he claims at the end that they'll come in good leave, that they'll do this in a nice way. Obviously, the first 3 reasons suggest that's probably not going to happen. But that also gives us a perspective of how the English colonists are viewing native peoples in the land. And so Metacom's been raised with the English colonists, and he's seen them grow and multiply. And again, there's some debate about this name. Some say that it's a name that Metacom gave to himself. Others say that the English colonists gave it to him. But ultimately, the war itself is called King Philip's War. And so as more and more English colonists are moving into Metacom's territory, you get intermittent skirmishes, and then war will break out in 1675. Now, initially, the colonists aren't organized enough to come together, but ultimately, they'll come together. They'll call themselves the United Colonies. It's one of the first times that several colonies unite together, and note when they do that, it's to kill native peoples. Mary Rowlandson is Mary Rowlandson is a woman, an English colonist who's taken captive, and she writes about her captivity. You've got a document that speaks to that, and it reflects a lot of the stereotypes of native peoples. When she notes that they are helpful, it's only she attributes it to God, not to native peoples. It's super sensationalized and was incredibly popular read, a bestseller at the time. Ultimately, what happens in this war is once the English colonists get themselves united, they are able to destroy Metacom and his warriors. When Metacom is killed, they decapitate him, they cut off his arms and legs, and they put his head on a post, and that post stays outside of Puritan town for the next 25 years as a warning to Native peoples. In fact, one of the first harvest celebration after this war, they paraded his head on a post as they walked through the town and gave thanks. So a little different depiction of a Thanksgiving celebration than we're usually told of in history classes. This war, though, is devastating for both sides. Obviously, it's more devastating for Native peoples, but proportional to the population at the time. This is the deadliest war in U.S. history, proportional to the population at the time, in terms of the amount of deaths and the economy. There's about 90 towns. A dozen or so of them are completely destroyed. Another several dozen are heavily damaged. Again, obviously, it's more damaging to Native peoples, but both sides suffered significantly in this war. Think about, too, that we call it King Philip's War. Who do we suggest is to blame for this war? And then what does that allow in terms of like justifying that war itself, right? In terms of naming it King Philip's War. Something to think about. All right, if you have any questions, you can leave those in the discussion board.